Welcome everyone to the Motherload. I'm so happy that you are here with us, and our guest today is Michelle from One Tough Mama. And I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we are going to dig into some of the heaviest and also some of the lightest parts of our motherhood journey. So take it away, Michelle, and introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle. Oh gosh, who am I? This is something I'm constantly coming back to. I actually hate this question. um, uh, this last year, I've had was forced to, it felt like a forcing, to kind of reflect on who I was. And so I kind of tried to find not to necessarily describe who I am anymore, and just instead be that I am a human, I am a person navigating this world as it comes my way, and doing it very imperfectly. Trying to do it with a lot of compassion. Humor is a helpful way to kind of help me get through that, and just learning as I grow. And it just so happens that as that human doing those things, I also happen to be a mom to little people. I am a spouse to my husband, and I am a fitness coach to women, which is kind of how I end up expressing who I am, is through those kind of three means, if you will. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I love that. I'm in a group coaching program right now, and we all had to start introducing ourselves with a video and post it in the Facebook group, which was super intimidating. I mean, I'm on social media all the time, but to actually do a video introducing who I am and what my passions are, it was really unnerving. And so we all did them. And then at the end, the coach was like, okay, so I really appreciated the people who didn't start with their resume, because that's how we all started. It was like, yes. Okay, so this is what I do for a job, and this is my marital status, and this is my child status, and this is, this is who I am. This is my place in the world. But for those people who actually started with I am this, or these are my values, or this is how I walk, this earth. It was when I listened to those ones, they landed so much different than okay, so I'm a graphic designer and I'm a mom to 3 and I'm divorced or married, or, whatever that looked like. And then they went into their passions. Right. And so it was so interesting, that we use those things as pillars of who we are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and taking that away feels scary.
Yes.
Really scary. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so tell me about some of the identity things that you have maybe gone through in terms of becoming a mom, and just the load of that, because when you remove the identity of mom of 2, partner, fitness coach, what is there?
Yeah, oh gosh. So it's so interesting because I'm not sure, maybe I still did. I don't know. I wasn't as self-aware before I had kids. I don't think I felt like I had to, because there was just so much less to be handling at that time. So I could get away with being like, hey, I'm an exercise physiologist and I like working out. And then that was okay. So I had enough time to spend on taking care of myself that, I never ever really felt lost in that. And then, you had a baby, and all of a sudden I didn't recognize who I was, because so many of the things that I love to do couldn't happen as easy, or I didn't know how to ask for the supports to make them happen. And so that was just really tricky. And I mean, I'm still learning that to this day. It's a constant learning process, I find, and to be able to communicate those needs and wants and desires in motherhood. And so it's just trying to figure that all out and remember what those passions are, when you're also caring for these other little people that need you a lot. Sometimes more than I can give, you know?
Oh, but isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
a lot, this is interesting. A theme that has kind of been coming up with my clients this week is like navigating that, especially in like in our now. And
Yeah.
how do you equally work on the things that you brought from your childhood into
Yeah.
parenting, and how to not project those onto your own children, but at the same time knowing that you're not going to be able to meet their every need. And so as
Yeah.
you are, as my clients are in therapy right now, working on the stuff that is often from our childhood,
Yes.
parallel with parenting in the now, knowing that you're not going to do it perfectly, knowing that there is absolutely no way that you can meet all of their needs all of the time. And so
No.
they're going to go to therapy for their own stuff, right? Because we can't possibly show up in all of the ways that they need us to show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And there was a lot of that came up, especially when the pandemic first happened. And I realized that I wasn't going to be going back to work in person, which I so desperately was ready to do. And part of my experience in the last year was like, you're not a fitness coach. You're not just a fitness coach. That's not your full identity. And I felt very lost when all of a sudden that was not my thing at the time. And yet it is what I love. And so finding kind of that separation is like, okay, that's not the only thing that you are. You're a person, you're navigating life. There's all this other beautiful stuff that doesn't have to do with fitness, but that is the way that I express it, I experience it, and I share it with other people. And so then to realize that and be like, no, this is worth all the effort to have that back in my life because I love it and it fills up my cup. And then it's kind of yanked away. And then my children needed so much more.
Yes.
And I was like, oh no, because there goes my cup filling, and so we made do, and I found other ways to coach. I did 100 free days of lives so that I could show up for others, but show up for myself, really. I mean, it was more for me than for anyone else. It just happened that other people loved doing it with me. Thank goodness. Like, I was so grateful for them. But yeah, like I was like, this is what I have to do so I can show up for me. Yeah. But it also lets me show up for them better and accept that, I mean, you can just do the best that you can. You just, but oh gosh, that is something hard. And like, I've been working on that in therapy myself since May. And there's still kind of the guilt and stuff there, but now just having a little bit more tools, I guess, to kind of pause, when I'm feeling all of that and be like, oh, maybe this is a time to either sit down and connect with my children, or that I need to create some barriers, disconnect from family life a little bit and go take care of myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mind sharing some of the tools, maybe one of the most profound, kind of revelations in the integration of that learning into your mom life?
Oh, gosh, honestly, I don't know if there's like one, but I think it really I think it came down to like figuring out how to create some boundaries and how to express them in a way that made sense to the little people.
Right.
Because I knew that I needed them. I knew that I needed time and space away. Like, being home with my kids all day it's really hard for me. And I run out of steam. I run out of patience. And when that happens, being a very patient person, I'm like, oh, clearly I need some time, but how can I do that, particularly when there was no physical space that I could, pass them off to or something. And so just really, I guess, just having the communication to just sit them down and say, like, listen, let's do something really lovely together. And that actually worked well for me, is that when I needed that time, I kind of lay it out, is that mommy's going to need some time, so that our time together can be special and fun. And so first, let's do something together. So that I kind of connected with them in a nice way. And that was usually through like arts and crafts or going outside and playing, but a very focused time with my kids. Right. And then I would kind of lay out the barriers of like, okay, and now this is mommy's time. This is what it's going to look like. And this is what I need you to do in this time, and it was usually short. I mean, little people don't understand much of anything, but 10 or 15 minutes where they knew that mommy was just going to go and have some quiet time in the basement or even just in the other room. And it's your job to stay here and it's mommy's job to refresh so that she can come back and be present with you again. And so I was just trying to figure out how I could communicate that to them, instead of me just trying to take my 15 minutes and it never going the way that I wanted it to, and then being frustrated that it never went the way I wanted it to. And we weren't getting anywhere. We were just spinning our tires with this constant frustration back and forth. And so that seemed to work for us. And we continue to do it. We're doing it right now, actually. My kids are home with me and they know that this is mommy's time. And so here's your responsibility. Mommy's is to come and do her work. And then as soon as I'm done, we will come together and we will do something fun again. And yeah, so I'm not sure if it was necessarily, a revelation, if you will, but more so just learning the words that I could use to communicate those needs. And then being intentional when I created that time to really just go and refresh. Yeah. That I was deserving of 10 minutes,
Yes.
And really 10 minutes, not like, gosh, I need to sit and drink this coffee and just be annoyed in the noise, like speaking it out loud. Yeah. And they really did get it. They understand it. Yeah. They don't maybe always respect it to the full thing, but they're little, they're doing the best they can and I'm doing the best I can. And it's,
Yeah, that's incredible. What I'm hearing in all of that is just like a lot of boundary setting, and not just and expectations, and like realistic expectations for the moment, around like, okay, these are the reasons why I need this, and I'm communicating that to you, and I'm still gonna acknowledge that you're doing the best you can and that I'm doing the best I can, and that I need 10 minutes, and 10 minutes can feel like a long time to a tiny person, but also in the grand scheme of the day, like you said, sometimes I just try to sneak away. Like I have this motto in our house. It's like, never make eye contact with a child who's playing by themselves, ever. Ever. You don't interrupt that shit for anything.
No, don't.
No. And so it's like, sometimes I would try to sneak away during those times. And I still do, because even if I can only get 3 minutes, that's 3 more minutes than I had this morning. But also I love that process of just like, okay, you're going to connect, and then you're going to disconnect, and then you're going to come and connect again.
Yeah. I was honestly just surviving off of those moments that I thought I could sneak away, and they rarely went as planned and were rarely long enough to really kind of refuel. And so, it was just interesting that actually like speaking those words out loud and like being a little bit more strategic versus like, oh my God, they're playing, run, this is my time. And like you, I'll still sneak away. And if it just happens that you get an extra 10-minute of calm, like I'll take it, but relying on it wasn't working for me. And then also just being like, they can handle themselves for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, they're 3 and 5. they can do this and I deserve it to
Absolutely.
have that moment, which I find is people, and I've said it and continue to say it. It's like, I haven't had 5 minutes to myself yet today. And it was kind of coming to that realization that I'm never going to have 5 minutes to myself if I don't make 5 minutes for myself. And so this is how we've done that here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not easy, but 100% necessary for our family anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Can you give us some context, Michelle, into some of the other heaviest, we're here talking about the heaviness of motherhood and how to make it a bit lighter. Can you give some context to some of the other things that maybe have felt heavy over the last 5 years of parenting?
Oh boy. What hasn't felt heavy? Oh my gosh. Learning how to be a spouse with children. Oh my,
Yes, absolutely.
holy man. It's hard. So hard. That's probably been the hardest, honestly. That's really tricky. Because I found like you're changing. Being a mom changed me. I think it changes all of us in some way with your time and what's important and just trying to figure it all out. And then your spouse is probably changing, in some way, or sometimes at different rates. Like I felt like I kind of had to go on this self-growth path, like I needed to go to therapy and get some help, and I needed to read more things on how I could show up for myself and for my kids. And my path was kind of going in a different direction and a different speed than my husband's. And so all of a sudden we were a little bit off kilter, and our communication was, oh gosh, it still continues to be hard, but yeah, just being, I don't know if you can be prepared for it. I think you can be prepared for the fact that things might change, and maybe like hopping on top of finding some new ways to communicate, to make it a little bit easier in those transitions, I think. But I mean, that's been really hard for us. And also, gratefully for us, that we were both willing to kind of lean into those things. We both go to therapy separately, so that we can show up for one another while navigating all the things that having a family, brings up. And just recently we experienced a pregnancy loss, and trying to come together in those moments when you have little people around and you still have to show up for them, but there's just so much sadness, and it felt like hopelessness at the time, and trying to do that and not having enough time to really communicate with them, in a meaningful way, the way that we needed to, where it felt like it wasn't, like it felt like we needed to sit and do it right then and there, but we just didn't have the time or the space, to make that happen. And so I think that's another tricky one too, is when all of a sudden you have children and so many different responsibilities, and you're being pulled in other ways, and then there's extenuating circumstances that happen, and just it can make it really tricky to kind of work through all of that. So yeah, and that's been really, really hard. But communication. Constantly working on that. Constantly working on that. And just we're trying to just do it as, openly with our children as possible, so they can see us kind of stumble and fall flat on our faces too, and then build it back up again, so they know that this is normal. There wasn't a lot of talking that went on in my household growing up. I'm grateful my parents had just a beautiful marriage and continue to do so today. So we were very lucky there, but we also didn't ever get to see the frustrations or anything that they disagreed on. And so never had any experience with how that might be overcome either. So yeah, trying to do it a little bit as a family, you know, within a reasonable way. They're little people. We have to, you know, choose their appropriate level, but that has been pretty tricky for us and for my husband and I. But, you know, we just keep chipping away at it. As things get thrown our way, we just kind of get thrust into that learning process a little bit harder and faster than we maybe wanted. But yeah, gosh.
Yeah, communication is like, it's the central, it's at the center. It's literally the center, because it emulates, it changes, it shifts, it allows, it validates, it empathizes, but then it also can do none of that if it's not at the center.
Yes.
And so
boy, yes.
the navigating, the continuing to navigate all of what you guys have experienced as two people is so important. I was reading kind of this like hierarchy of needs when you become a parent, and it's like at the base is relationship with self, then your relationship with your partner, and then your relationship with your children. Because the relationship with self, I mean, we could all roll our eyes at the idea of self-care and taking care of ourselves, and like, you know, all of those things. We know it. We know it's right there.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But the part that really surprised me in this, because I've in periods of time, for those of you who don't know, I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so there have been times in those 5 years where it's flipped, and my children have been the priority and my partner has been last. And that has never felt good in our relationship. We both feel there's a lack of connection, and there's hardly any empathy or validation in those moments, because each person is like, you're an asshole, and you're an asshole, and you're an asshole, and you're an asshole. But I'm an asshole because you're being an asshole, and you're being an asshole because I'm being an asshole.
Yeah.
And so anyway, this hierarchy of needs was really like, oh, okay, like there is reasons behind it, and not that there always needs to be a reason behind, you know, taking care of yourself or your relationship, but it was like, okay, no, I get it, because in 13 years, it's likely that my son is going to leave the house and go off on his own, or, you know, maybe 13 to 18 years, maybe. We'll give him, you know, he's gonna stay home longer and longer now. But anyway,
yes.
And my husband is going to still be there, hopefully, by that point.
Yeah.
And so it is very interesting how easy and how quickly we can lose ourselves in that relationship with our children, and thinking that it's serving them, when it's often not going to serve them in the long run. That independence, boundaries, and healthy expectation, they actually need to see that stuff. Like just on the weekend, we sat down, my 5-year-old, and said, we need 10 minutes to have a conversation. Like it needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. And so you need to stay here with your brother for 10 minutes. Call us if there is an emergency, if somebody is hurt, if you can't reach your water bottle, but like, really, you will be fine for 10 minutes. We need to go and have this conversation. And he was like, but why do you need to have the conversation? And why do you need to have it now? And it's like, we will answer all of your questions after.
Yeah,
amazing. Go and have this conversation. And we did, and that felt way better than trying to have it in the living room, like you said, like trying to sip your coffee and like in the noise and in the chaos. It was like we were actually able to start and finish that conversation. The decision was made, and then we could resume time with the kids, as opposed to being like, you're being too loud, don't jump, don't stomp, we're trying to talk. Like, and he is at an age where that is like developmentally possible. Like he understands that, you know, 2 years ago, probably not. We probably would have had to table that conversation for like dinner time, or some like a time when we're all together but doing something. And so I'm really grateful for that, the progression of their ages, because as they age, you get different things that are heavy.
Yeah.
You know, like navigating right now, kindergarten, right? Like if I had a 3-year-old right now, it would be just like daycare or like, but now it's like
Yes.
navigating kindergarten and masks and social
Yeah.
development. And I don't know what he's doing all day because we don't get the reports, you know, like the daycare gives us. And it's just like, you know, here's my one worksheet. We worked on the letter G today. Okay, great. Like, was anybody mean to you? Did you cry? Did you pee? Like, I don't know.
Right?
Did you laugh? Was somebody your friend today? I don't like, and
Yeah.
so anyway, there's as they age, you know, for those who are listening who just have little babies, and for those who are listening who might have older children as well, it's like they do get to the age where they start to understand these concepts. And like you, Michelle, I grew up in a single parent household. So I said to my partner one time, there was no communication that I witnessed in terms of parental communication, other than, you know, my dad standing at the door and then me going, right? But I said to my partner once, I said, I don't know how to do this. I've never witnessed it. I literally don't know how to do this. And his response, he has his moments. His response was, it doesn't matter that you didn't witness it. It matters how you want our relationship to be. And so, you know, whether you witness something or not, it doesn't matter because you would have been shifting and changing that anyway. So how is it that you want the dynamics of this to be? Because we can do that. Like we have the ability to do that. And I was just like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And that was really, the acknowledgement of that like, even though I never saw that relationship as a child, you could still reinvent that. And it's the same for those who've experienced the darker side maybe of parental engagement and relationships and addictions, or, you know, any of that, you know, that you may have seen growing up, and that you can still decide how you want your relationship and your children to be raised. It's acknowledging the stuff that we bring, the stuff that our partners bring, and how do we come together in that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. Isn't that true?
Yeah. Because we all bring stuff, you know. I think we all bring stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we all have our own stuff. I love that hierarchy. I have certainly, I don't want to say intentionally, but just getting lost in it, have allowed myself to be distracted by my responsibility to care for my children.
Yes.
Take away from those two really important pillars.
Yeah.
You know, and bless the spouse's heart, you know, it would kind of go from, you know, this nice thing happening here to now we have this other peak on our little triangle, if you will, and all of the intentions are going there. And then I realized, oh my gosh, like I don't know who the bottom part is anymore. And so then I come back down here, and sometimes we forget there's that other, you know, if there is a spouse in your life. And yeah, it is hard. It is really hard. And that's definitely been a thing for us, is trying to find that balance, and also to create, I don't even know, experiences, I guess, where my spouse can have that kind of equal connection with our little peak there, because mommy is their world, because mommy gets the most time with them. But it has been very hard for our relationship in that way. Yeah. And for me to be like, nope, this doesn't have to be me. This doesn't have to be mine. This is ours to be shared. Yes. And it's only in this really beautiful, you know, connection between the two of us that we create this really happy family unit. Mm-hmm. But it is hard. It is still hard, and it'll probably continue to be hard. But thankfully it has been worth it, and continues to be worth it. But oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, yeah. So on that note, we are getting close to our 20 minutes, and I know all of those who are listening enjoy that little sweet spot.
Yes.
So with that, I am going to leave you with the idea of this triangle, and I'm going actually to create a graphic now, because it makes, now that as I've like I walked through that, and then the inverse, right? Like when our
Yes.
relationship with our children is the top, it's like we're going to topple over.
Yeah.
um, so what I encourage those of you who are listening to do is check in with that base layer. And what does your relationship with self look like right now? What can it look like? What do you want it to look like? And if there is a partner in your life or a support person, that middle layer it's just about support. It's just about a relationship with somebody who's going to lift you up and support you through the relationship with your children. And so if it's not a partner, or maybe it's a friend, or a family member that's in your middle layer. And so check in with that relationship as well. Is there anything that that relationship needs? Is there anything that you need from that relationship that you're not receiving? And then at the top, our top peak is the children. And what does that relationship look like right now? And are you thinking about it as a triangle? And it's not imagining that the peak is like tiny, like when we think about a triangle, it's the peak is kind of tiny, and but they do require a lot of needs. But what is your foundation is this relationship with self, and then a relationship with someone, a support person, a partner, family member, or friend, and then your relationship with your children. And what do any of those relationships need right now? And if they do need anything, know that through this conversation, equally, Michelle and I have mentioned therapy, groups, all kinds of other things you can access to maintain that relationship with self. We're not meant to do it all on our own. We don't always have the skills and the tools to implement. One of the things that I really enjoy saying to people is that I don't mother often the way that I'm supporting you in mothering, right? Like I stumble, I lose my patience, I lose my cool, my top is blown. It happens to everyone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in those times, definitely the ways that makes that less like an erupting volcano is the support that you receive from other people, and whether that's professional or personal support
Yeah.
will all depend on your circumstance. So
Totally.
thank you very much, Michelle, for being here with us
Oh,
today. I
thank
really, truly
you.
appreciate. All of Michelle's info is below if you want to check out any of her online offerings. If you are a postpartum mother, or just mothering through the ages, she's got something for everyone in terms of physical and emotional development. I did her stretch class last night, and it ended on a very beautiful, relaxing note. And so you can access any of Michelle's things in the links below.
Oh, thanks for the conversation, Kayla. It was so nice to connect with you.
Great. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Bye, everyone.